and we want to welcome everybody that is here today. This is truly one of the hottest topics. You guys picked one of the hottest topics at one of the hottest times. You started talking about this about a month ago. I was like, I don't know what all this stuff is, like this chat GPT. I don't know what that means. And then all of a sudden, bam, everybody's talking about it. So you guys are super popular right now. But we appreciate everybody joining us. We have a whole bunch of folks. This is truly an interagency briefing, and we appreciate that. And this comes directly from GSA. This event is not affiliated or endorsed by GSA or any agency. It's provided you for informational purposes only. And this is so all you folks in the government can communicate without having to think that this is an endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor. How do you like that? We do like participation, don't we, Jeff?
We do.
And so with that in mind, if you have anything, we're gonna pop in the Space Odyssey 2001 and 2010, both of them winners, both of those winners. So we're gonna pop into, I said I was going to anyway. Hold on a second, I got to get that. I will get you the handouts, which will be this presentation. If you have any questions, do me a favor, because we have a bunch of folks here today. Do me a favor and let's make sure we get that into either raising your hand or in the Q&A. Chat is for where you're from and your favorite sci-fi movie. And I'll make sure we get let me grab the information that we have for your presentation. I thought I had it. Let me see. Is this going to work? There we go. Boom. You can download the presentation right from GovBrief, and I'll do my best to be able to keep you guys up to speed on all of those things as it comes apart. So you can make sure you can communicate. Let me get this other stuff. What happened to my controls here? Every time. There we go. There we are. All right. So here we go. In the chat, you can also say this will be the best briefing ever if. So best briefing ever if. We have a couple that came in on the inside. And Will said it breaks down the sci-fi from reality. That's what we're going to be talking about today. What's real? And guess what? Sci-fi is turning real is what I hear. And Tanya, I guess that is from VA. Will we be talking about Chat GPT at all? I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Talking about it, showing it, teaching you how to use it even.
You're actually going to show it. All right. Dion from State, cybersecurity use cases. We might not dive into those, but we will be glad to talk about that outside of this if you guys want to continue the conversation. But we'll talk about cybersecurity parts, right? We'll get into that a little bit. Kamiko, discuss AI in the context of our agency's mission. That is perfect because that's what we want to talk about. Lewis from CDC, I'm able to understand what the CDC expects from AI solutions. That's a great question. I'm not sure if we'll answer that one per se, but we will talk about what it can do. Sarah Lynn from DHS ICE, I get a better understanding of AI. Fantastic. Charles from VA, I can understand the capabilities, limitations, and ethical boundaries for use in crisis services. Oh, are there any ethical boundaries, Jeff? I don't think so.
We're going to talk about a lot of that, actually. There's a whole lot of things kind of tied into the darker side of AI, if you will, which we'll definitely touch on before we're done here today.
That's awesome. And Seth from USGS, I come away with a feeling I can trust AI delivered results, right? More than, and can better recognize any AI generated output. Interesting. That's getting harder and harder, isn't it, Seth?
It really is.
Jason from EPA, I got the proposal about how to deploy AI using my water data. Wow. I don't know what that's about, but Jason, that would be interesting to talk about. Nathan from HUD, I learned how to use AI for background research. Great idea. Chad from FEMA, it shows me how I will be using AI in government in 1 year. I don't know if it's going to happen in a year or not, but it's coming for sure. So please address, Jeffrey says, how AI impact human autonomy, authority, and liability. Great question. We'll address that. I think, right, Jeff?
Yeah, to an extent, sure.
To an extent. We're not going to dive too bad. From Army Corps, from Christopher, how can I leverage AI to increase productivity and acquisition workforce? Whoa, fantastic, right? Acquisition workforce. Love that. Wendy from FDA, how it impacts schools and work-related situations. If I learn how, and then Michael's saying, if I learn how AI can be easily added to PWS or task order. I don't know yet, but that's great. John from FAA, job security. That's a big one. That's a big one. And Celia, use of AI and optimization of cloud monitoring, of AI for monitoring applications hosted by Azure and AWS and GovClouds. I don't know. Are you going to dive into that at all? But I bet you Celia wants to.
So we're going to kind of show some general use case stuff that's applicable to many of these things. I'm not sure every single one, but certainly there are other things we can talk about, separately if need be.
That's fantastic. And Nathaniel, how does effective use of AI in developing requirements look like? Love that one. We'll see what we can do to help there. And John from Census, is there any reference to architecture and best practices document? No, I don't know about that one.
No such thing yet, I don't think, but we're going to refer to a couple of ways to look at that sort of thing. So
I love it. So we are going to be interactive this whole time. We got a bunch of them here that says RPA versus AI hybrid implementations. That's a great question. So robotic process automation, Billy's asking that. And let's see. Love the fact. Star Wars, we got Carl from Star Wars. Love it. All right, so why are you guys here today? Are you on the hot seat? Are you trying to get your head around this thing? You want to be part of the dialogue, or your boss made you come? And how many folks have been here to a Gov Brief session before? And while we're introducing these characters that we have here today, Jeff and Doug are both from Divine. And Divine is all about creating the value for the customer through its enterprise cloud and on-premise cybersecurity solutions. So they have a little bit of experience in cyber, right? And then intellectual property and active contributor in the community across the board in a lot of different places. And they've been founded in 2002, and they're incorporated in Illinois, and they are an SBA 8A in the 888 system. And Jeff Lanham is a senior business technology executive. He's experienced in many aspects of information systems, design, architecture, implementation, support, management, enablement, and business development. And Doug, he actually is writing things for people, apparently. He has a paper on artificial intelligence and mainstream enterprise applications, was published in the peer-reviewed World Complexity Science Academy Journal. That is you can access that from the GovBrief site as well. And he's a senior enterprise and solution architect and IT program management consultant specializing in business transformation and value creation enabled for information technology, IT transformation, cost reduction, enterprise systems development, and IT integration. How you like that for an introduction for Doug and Jeff? There we go. And Roxanne says, Department of Veteran Affairs, not into sci-fi movies. I don't know how that can possibly be, Roxanne.
You might
That's
be in the wrong
okay.
place, but that's okay.
That's all right. We don't judge, Roxanne. We don't judge your movie selections. So there you go. So we will so let's take a look, and we another 3, 2, 1. 75% have participated so far of 104 that are here. Let's see. All right. So here we go. Here we're going to share these results out. Got 3 people that are on the hot seat for AI. That means something's cooking in AI in their world, right? And then a lot of folks trying to get their head around. They want to be a part of the dialogue. Fantastic. We're going to make sure we do that. And 3 people are here only because their boss made them come. So there you go. So as we're thinking about this and introducing to these guys, I do have the next poll, which is, what is your level of exposure to these new terms, like ChatGPT or GPT-3 from OpenAI? Never heard of it? Or you heard of it, haven't tried it? Have you tried it some? Use it regularly? You have experience in something else? So that's where this is going to be fun. This is the fun one. So this is probably right before machines take over. And speaking of machine taking over, you ready to take over, Jeff?
Surely am.
All right. So I'm gonna make sure you can share. You can share, and I'm gonna stop my sharing, and we're gonna see if it works. Look at this. Unbelievable. We did it. We have not caused a warp in the time-space continuum. At least not yet, Jeff.
Not yet. There's still time, Dave, right?
Yeah, there's plenty of time. There's plenty of things that can go wrong, and Murphy is all over these types of interactions. So I want to introduce Jeff Lanham, great guy. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today.
Surely, Dave. Thanks very much, and great intro here. Let's jump right on in, right? So, Here we're looking at a quick look at our agenda for today. We'll start with an introduction that provides some of the background on what AI is all about in general, as well as how it relates to government work specifically. We will then do some demonstrations that showcase the power and ease of use of some real-world AI solutions, including and especially ChatGPT. And we'll wrap it up with a brief look at the darker side of AI and some final thoughts on how you can manage that and start utilizing this amazing technology in your everyday lives coming out of this. That's our hope.
So let me share these results with everybody so you can see this. There you go. There's some folks that are brand new to this. Fantastic. We love that, right? Right, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely.
And some folks have heard it, but they haven't tried it. And then 31% have actually tried it some. That's fantastic.
All
and
right.
a lot of folks aren't using it regular. It's probably true because it's not a regular thing yet. But it
might
will
be. And so we'll show you some new ways to use it today and maybe give you some new things to think about.
That's fantastic. Awesome. And I'll try to keep us up to speed on the Q&A. And there we go. Love
Right.
it. Go. Awesome.
So let's move right on into it then, right? We'll start with a quick review of the summary of the enterprise AI strategy from the Department of Health and Human Services. Of course, that's what we were kind of, focusing a little bit on today. So when we do refer directly, that's kind of the context, but this is pretty typical, pretty common, and similar scenarios across other government departments and agencies. So hopefully there's something here for everyone, even if you're not specifically from HHS. But what it says here is that HHS should endeavor to leverage AI to solve previously unsolvable problems, right? Lead advances in health and well-being, and generally embrace the use of AI in a trustworthy manner. It really speaks to developing an AI-ready workforce, encouraging research and innovation, especially in the health space, and ensuring the safe, secure, and ethical use of artificial intelligence technologies. That's crucial, as we'll talk about here today. To me, that means you should be able to take what you learn here and apply it immediately in your daily work. That's our hope, and hopefully we can enable you to do that and go forth and be more artificially intelligent, I guess, right?
Yep. And just so you know, we do have a comment from Christopher Andrews on the poll. Which one of these three presenters is an AI bot? Dave, Jeff, or Doug?
You'll have to figure that out by the end, right? That's the trick. Real life Turing test, huh?
Thanks, Christopher. That's awesome.
So this slide is kind of showing an overview of some of the recent legislation that relates to the use of artificial intelligence in the federal space. As you can see, there's a number of significant bills that deal with this, either directly or indirectly. The main objectives, I think, that span all of these really speak to the whole purpose of our presentation today. And that's really about embracing AI in a holistic way while being mindful of the risks and threats that it can engender, right? Clearly, there's a ton of interest here in government, especially, and no small amount of money to support implementing and engaging with AI solutions. And we're expecting, based on what we've seen, for this only to grow going forward, right? Before we get into the details here, and for those that this is new to you, right? Let's start with some good old definition of terms for some of the most important concepts here. Just kind of get your head around what this is all about, right? So artificial intelligence, or AI, is the widest and broadest term, really kind of the umbrella. It includes all the types of technologies that attempt to emulate aspects of human cognition, right? So people can think, they can learn, they can make decisions, they can synthesize new things, right? That's what we're trying to accomplish with AI in general. Machine learning is a subset of AI that uses vast amounts of data to train a digital model of reality, which you can then use to, ask it questions or have it create content or evaluate content or whatever. We'll see more about that later. And finally, deep learning is an even narrower term that applies to some complex learning models with multiple layers of artificial neural networks, right? That's a little techie, but underneath it all, that's kind of how this stuff works. And, deep learning is what ChatGPT and GPT-3 and most of the things you're reading about in the news these days are based on the latest deep learning algorithms and the vast amounts of information that they're being used to train them to do interesting things. Here's a colorful slide that I like because it really kind of showcases in a great way, I think, the high-level relationships between the domains of math, data, and computer science, and where they overlap and come together to enable these kinds of technologies. To varying extents, they all play critical roles in the development and application of AI solutions. Statistics in particular is important in machine learning because that's what really provides the framework for understanding and evaluating the performances and the results coming out of these machine learning models. In computer science, AI is closely related to fields such as machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, and robotics, all of which involve the use of algorithms to process and analyze huge amounts of data, learn and intuit patterns from that data, and then use that to make predictions, decisions, or generate content. I really think this picture does a good job of highlighting some of the areas of huge potential value that live in the intersection between these things, right? So data science, data mining, predictive analytics, cognitive computing, these things are all, really growing quickly these days.
And real quick, Jeff, keep that up for a second, because Elizabeth says, I knew it was over my head when you started. My favorite sci-fi movie. She doesn't have a tech background, but that's all. The beautiful thing about what we're talking about is you don't need a tech background to use what we're talking about. Now, when there's going to be propeller heads all over the place in this, I get it. I'm one of them. And so is Jeff. And so is Doug. No offense to anybody who is one, but we're really talking. She has a clinical background. So this is, you can see where this kind of goes across. Even you could lay clinical into that model too, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And some of this stuff even falls outside of computer science in a sense, or, things like huge data analysis with more traditional technologies is definitely part of this as well. But, new things. And basically, I think the key thing to think about here is new ways to solve problems or to solve previously unsolvable problems with, new ways of approaching them. Right.
Yep. And she says to use it in clinical trials. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done some work with customers in the medical device space and in the software as a medical device world and some other things like that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. You're awesome.
Yep. So let's get into a little bit of the history here, right? So we'll leave the techie stuff behind for a second and start talking about who's who and what's what, kind of how we get to where we are today. The history of AI can be traced all the way back to ancient Greece, where myths and legends portrayed robots and automatons as intelligent beings. Early computing efforts by Pascal, Babbage, Ada Lovelace, and others really set the stage for all the advancements we've seen since then. The modern field of AI as we know it today really began to take shape in the mid-20th century with the development of digital computers. In 1950, especially, the question of how to determine whether a machine is intelligent, right, was answered by Alan Turing in a way that we still use today, and which is called the Turing test. It asks, does the system exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from that of a human? And as we're going to see, early models began to start to do that, but the ones today are much better at seeming, acting, behaving like humans. And that's really where some of the magic comes into play and also some of the challenges, as we'll talk about. But the earliest semi-successful efforts to seem human came in the form of the first chatbot, which was called Eliza. Eliza is a program that parsed the input provided by the user, applied a relatively simple set of rules to that input, and then responded with text output that attempted to mimic a person-centered psychotherapist, right? In the theory of Roget. While quite rudimentary by current standards, Eliza was compelling enough to create quite a buzz back in the day. And actually, on a personal note, my own very first experience and exposure to computers was when I first saw Eliza running on a Radio Shack Model 80, like in this picture here. And I was in grade school at the time. So I was instantly hooked and thus began my lifelong passion for an eventual career in computer science. So the inspirational stuff, right?
Awesome.
Despite all that hype, unfortunately, that has surrounded AI throughout its history, or maybe even because of that hype, right, there have been several periods of decreased interest, right, where AI research kind of stalled or didn't move forward, funding for research dried up, and many AI projects were canceled or scaled back during some periods in the 80s and 90s, and then again in the mid 2000s, right? But of course, between and after and since those times, AI has experienced periods of rapid growth and progress driven by the more advanced algorithms and the availability of more powerful computing resources, right? The cloud has enabled, and the massive amounts of compute that we can tap into now has really enabled some things that weren't possible before. And really the most visible milestones in AI development have come with leaps in the ability of machines to do things that only humans could do previously, like winning at ever more challenging games, like, first chess back in the late 90s, then Jeopardy and Go, and most recently, actually just recently, diplomacy. Diplomacy is a pretty impressive accomplishment since it requires having to have conversations with the other players and actually negotiating deals. There's no dice, there's no chance. You just have to negotiate the best deals. So you have to talk to people and know how to do that to win at diplomacy. And the latest AIs can do that. And as we're going to see when we get to the demo, we've come a long way since the days of Eliza.
That's a fact. And Dave Soley says there's a need to understand the mental models behind AI, the lateral analysis, and heuristic reasoning. That's big words, Dave.
Absolutely. So now history lessons done. Let's get into kind of more where we're at now and look at the future, right? It's useful to think about this in terms of the hype cycle, which is a model developed by Gartner that can be used to describe typical patterns of adoption and expectations surrounding new technologies and new innovations. It's been widely adopted as a way to understand the stages of development and commercialization of new technologies, including AI, right? And this particular graph here is all about different kinds of AI solutions or technologies, some of which we've already talked about or touched on, some of which we'll actually show during the demonstration, right? And this is brief. This was from about middle of last year, I think, right? And from the most current one here that we're seeing, it's obvious that many of these technologies are still in the innovation trigger stage. And that means they're still in the earliest phases of development. Potential applications and benefits aren't well understood yet. And obviously there's more work to be done. The artificial general intelligence, which is commonly thought of as the holy grail of AI, right? And that refers to the ability of an intelligent agent to understand and learn any intellectual task that a human being can. And that's still, fortunately, in its infancy, right? And when you think about, Terminator and RoboCop and some of those sci-fi movies where the machines get smart and come after us, right? That's really referring to artificial general intelligence. And that's a ways off still, but it's not, that far off. Generative AI.
After this past week, I'm like, holy smokes, with the next generation of Chat GPT. My son was talking about that and seeing it Linus Tech Tips, the crazy stuff. Yeah. Anyhow, and
absolutely.
I'll save your comment, Wesley, in it for a minute, because that's a winner. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's referring, ChatGPT, that's referring to generative AI, basically, and natural language processing. And that's really kind of on the edge of inflated expectations stage. And I think, even in the last 6 months, I would suggest that some of these things have moved further along this curve, right? And especially things like ChatGPT, they're starting to really pass through that slope of enlightenment, right? After the trough of disillusionment. That's a hard word to say, right? Hype begins to die down and reality sets in, and the early expectations and applications, don't meet the criteria that were hoped for. A few technologies
Wesley gets caught in the trough of disillusionment.
Not the place you want to be, right? Slope of enlightenment sounds a lot better, doesn't it? And that's where some things like computer vision are. That's being used more and more. It's in airports now. It's in our smartphones doing facial recognition, and some of these things really are getting into mainstream applications and everyday uses, and it's all accelerating, right? I think that's the key thing to take away.
That's true.
All right, so let's get into some real things now, right? So great, that's some theory, some background, some getting us on the same page. Now we've got several slides full of what do we do with it, or what can be done with it, right? Let's dig further into what the hype's really all about. we're going to show a couple different perspectives for where AI technology can be used today, both in the context of business and in government as well. This slide is a general list of some of the most common use cases we see in the real world, right? While some of these items do require non-trivial investments in AI tools and solutions before you can start to realize some of the benefits, many of them can be implemented with readily available pre-trained models that don't need any prior investments, right? And we're going to actually show you some of these today and how you can go kind of do them on your own, actually, during the demonstration here. I would expect pretty much everybody in the audience, will find at least an item or two on this list where you will see potential value in addressing real world needs and streamlining repetitive tasks using these kinds of tools, already and today and soon, right? Here's another way to look at some of the most compelling uses of AI across multiple domains. In this case, we're seeing this is the top 10 use cases of AI based on the total revenue of products and tools and technologies since 2016, right? So the leading entry by a pretty big margin is object detection and avoidance, which is applied to everything from industrial robots to autonomous vehicles, right? Tesla's all about that, among other things, to robot vacuum cleaners like Roomba and all those sorts of things you're seeing today. Given the huge investments in those things, self-driving vehicles and whatnot, it's not a surprise that this item tops the list in terms of investment. Next item is image recognition and classification, right? We just talked about that. So that's, the facial recognition in airports and other places and in cell phones and smartphones, and police license plate scanners and a whole lot more are being used with that. So a ton of investments and ton of current and in development solutions around that. And of course, the rest of these entries cover a variety of other data processing tasks, which in some cases are specific examples of some of the items we saw in the last slide. And all of them represent innovative use cases of computers to do highly detailed, repetitive, boring, or dangerous tasks in some cases that most humans don't like to do or don't want to do or can't. And there's obviously a ton of value in those use cases where, it's allowing us to do new things or do them in more efficient ways.
I'm particularly not in favor of the usage for speed cameras.
Me neither, right? I got a bit of a lead foot, Dave, right? So, I'd prefer that not as well, but
I may or may not have ever violated the law in that fashion.
That's right. So finally, we get into a slide that's more specifically focused on and relevant to the government space, right? And this is where we see some of the most controversial potential uses of this technology, such as autonomous weapon systems and automated decision-making systems and things like that, right? When you trust the computers with the weapons, that's when you get the most risky scenarios and the most exciting sci-fi movies, I guess, right? We'll explore the darker side of this, as we mentioned a little later, but suffice it to say that there's good reasons that a lot of those types of movies have explored this, right? And I think we've hit on most of them. I actually listed a few that are most relevant here. And some of my personal favorites, I already mentioned Terminator, RoboCop, The Matrix, 2001 and The Space Odyssey, and actually WALL-E. I lumped into this as well as, end of the world scenarios and what comes after sorts of things. Fortunately, there's plenty of less threatening uses of AI in governments, and hopefully you and everybody on this call will focus on those and not the others, right?
That would be beneficial for everybody to focus on those.
Definitely. So the fields, let's get a little bit more into how and what, right? Now we've talked about the why and when and whatever. So, the field of AI and machine learning is advancing rapidly, obviously, in recent years. And there is now a wide and growing range of tools, products, platforms, libraries, pre-trained models, and other things currently available for creating solutions based on AI and machine learning. Virtually all the major players in the technology space have made huge investments, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Salesforce, IBM. We just, pretty recent news that, Microsoft had invested $1 billion in open AI and ChatGPT that we're going to see. Now they've just upped that to $10 billion over the next 5 years. So, we're talking lots of money going into these things. Fortunately, there are also freely available tools for many environments that enable exploration of data and creation of AI and ML solutions with little or no investment needed. Open source libraries that make it easier than ever to start leveraging this technology for your initial efforts, and they can be quickly deployed to one of the major cloud platforms for use in larger or production scenarios as well. And finally, there's, and last but certainly not least, where most of the news and interest is in the growing number of ready-made, pre-trained AI models that can provide some pretty amazing results all by themselves, which, as we mentioned, is what we're going to see in the demo. So without further ado, for our demonstration today, we are going to focus on showcasing some of the capabilities of the OpenAI platform, including ChatGPT and the engines behind that, which are called GPT-3. We'd originally planned, and I think we said in the initial literature that we had planned to take a tour of some of the AI-related services in Microsoft Azure as well. But we decided, based on everything, to limit our time today to focus on OpenAI and ChatGPT. That's, we think that's the most value to everybody. If you really do want to learn more about Microsoft Azure or Google or Amazon or any of the other AI tools and platforms we've mentioned here, we're more than happy to schedule an individual session with enough time to drill down and really do it justice. So let's go ahead and switch gears and get going. I'm going to stop presenting here, and we're going to turn it over to Doug, who is going to take us through all this cool stuff.
Okay. First things
First, let's get our audio.
First things first, let's get our audio straight.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Pay no attention to the man
All right,
behind
how's
the
that
curtain.
sound?
That's perfect. Awesome.
I think I need to turn my speaker on. Okay. All right, how we doing there?
A little feedback. There we go.
How about
How
now?
that? Talk again, Doug.
How about now?
Now, a little bit of feedback, but I think we can live with it.
Okay. All right, good deal. Let me share my screen. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. So what I'm showing here is the new Eliza, Dave.
Probably Jeff.
Jeff mentioned Eliza earlier. Actually, I said Jave, so it was Jeff and Dave all rolled into one.
So now you know what happens when the AI goes wrong. It starts combining names.
And now you know which one of the three of us is the bot. So Jeff mentioned Eliza earlier. It first appeared around 1964, if I remember right, and now it's grown up from a TRS-82. Actually has a web page, but we're going to see that it's still pretty 1964. But before I get into this actual demo, Jeff also mentioned facial recognition and some of the real-world applications. I'm going to digress just briefly. I was out of the country week before last. I came home Wednesday night, arrived at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. I walked up to the global entry kiosk, was reading the sign about what to do about my glasses and my mask if I had one. And before I finished reading the sign, the machine said, "Welcome home."
Welcome home, Doug.
It just looked at my face. I didn't scan a passport. It just said, "Okay."
Wow.
Yep. Very cool.
And
a little scary.
I just saw literally right before we started. I didn't get to read it because I saw it right before we started, but they were just talking about TSA putting some restrictions on TSA using that information. But go ahead.
Okay, well, let's talk to Eliza here. Let's just jump in. Hi, Eliza, can we talk? What would you like to talk about? Well, yeah, this is going to be a tough conversation. My life is a mess, and I don't know what to do. Does that trouble you? Well, now you know why Eliza is Rogerian, because in Rogerian therapy, really all it ever does is answer a question with a question. I really need help. I feel hopeless. Do you enjoy feeling hopeless? So we've sort of hit the extent of the capabilities here in Eliza. So let's see if we can do a. Oh, why is my screen sharing paused?
You good?
How do I?
Did you pause it?
How do I unpause that?
Think. You want me to try to take it back?
Oh,
and then-
Zoom, got it, okay.
There you go.
All right, so now you should be seeing the OpenAI chat engine. And let's try this again. Let's try. Sorry, my screen geometry isn't right here.
Okay. You got it?
Yep. Okay. Hi, can we talk?
We're seeing the operational aspect.
Yeah, that's the wrong one. There we go. It'll come back in a minute. So oh, by the way, if you have any questions, pop them into the Q&A, or and we'll make sure that we get those answered, because we'll have a good session at the end here. Go ahead there, Doug.
All
You got it?
So hi, can we talk? Yes, of course. My life is a mess and I don't know what to do. Can you tell me a little bit more?
So for the folks that are therapists that we're talking about job security. Wow.
A little more verbose, isn't it?
Quite a lot more verbose and very real world.
Yeah.
Talking about the hotlines that are available 24/7, reach out to a professional, so on and so forth.
And I know the folks in the VA, that's going right in their wheelhouse right now. Done a lot of work with folks and helping with suicide and things like that. So that's very, very cool.
So that's one example. Now imagine, you're going to switch gears from this kind of fun comparison of the old versus the new, where have we come in 60 years, over to a case of, imagine you're an airline PR person and your airline is just melting down. You've got to go out and do a press conference in 10 minutes, but you also have the flu. And you've got to write a statement. Oh, you know what? Maybe the AI content generation can help me. So I don't want to do that one. I want to do this one.
Okay. Kimberly's asking, where does it obtain the content to answer the questions? It's a great question. And Christopher is right until like last week. Christopher said 2021 internet data. Now it has the ability to do the web immediately.
So I don't know how much this you were able to read, but if you read it, it sounds very natural. We appreciate, and ends with we appreciate your patience and understanding during this challenging time. But it's also a little bit generic. So I'm thinking, I've got to say more than that. I've got to talk some specifics about the number of flights canceled, and guess what? It's also Christmas Eve, and we really feel bad about that.
It's amazing the mysterious airline you came up with.
So I just said, by the way, today is Christmas and people are going to miss out. And the bot is saying, we understand the frustration and inconvenience for our passengers and their families and wanting to be together on Christmas Eve and the holidays. And it's kind of amazing. And it very seamlessly and naturally even comes back to that 3 paragraphs later. We understand that being away from loved ones during the holidays is difficult. We sincerely apologize. So the question somebody asked earlier, how do I tell the difference between machine and human? I think it's going to get harder, and that's kind of the point.
Christopher says that's crazy. You are right. All right. Yes, and just don't ask it for directions, Brett. It may drive you right off the cliff. Just kidding. All right. If you ask the same question again, we'll give the same response. Great question, Adam.
The answer is sometimes. We'll see more about that in a second.
Yep. So Al is saying the internet is filled with more info that is incorrect than correct. How does this determine the accurate response? Another very great question, Al. Fantastic. And
That's where I mean to be.
Oh, okay, good. Cool.
All right. So switching gears here. So we talked about what we just talked about was an example of content generation. We gave the machine a couple little prompts, a little bit of subject matter, and said, generate this statement for me for the press. Now I've got this fairly long web page, and it's too long. I don't have time to read all that. So what I want to do is I want to come back to my chat. Chat, and I want to take all that text from that website. Which I'm going to do here in just a second. Copy. Paste. Oh, sorry. Wrong copy.
wow, that's great. So Wesley's asking, is there a program to put lengthy chat GPT response into text to determine if it was AI generated? So being able to ask it if it was AI generated, that's fantastic, Wesley.
There's actually some new work going on about that to try to embed, something in the response so that it can tell it was computer generated, but it's not quite there yet.
Wow, that is a great question, Wesley. And it depends on the AI platform, but in this instance, pull documents and provide answers, Dave, I think we answered that as well. It's a combination of historical documents as well as now being able to hit the web in real time. And if you haven't seen what Linus Tech Tips did on this on Friday, it is spectacular to watch their reaction. These are real deep propeller heads.
So here's an example of content summarizing. I took that whole lengthy web page, said summarize this, and here's what we've got. We've got 5 or 6 sentences, and then I read the whole article. I read this, and it makes perfect sense. It's a really good summary. It does a good job with that.
One cool thing I like about that feature is you can tell it either how many units a word to limit the size, or to target it as second grader or a certain grade level, so it can interpret, either use smaller words or whatever.
Awesome. That's always been an issue for me when I'm writing an article or trying to write an article, is being able to condense it to where it was. So we have
it's a great application for if you're in school and you're writing papers and they insist on an abstract every time, just let the machine give you the abstract.
And Dazan said, once I asked it to write a vanity card about traffic in the voice of Chuck Lorre. It did, and it was in his style and humors. So there you go.
We've got 1 or 2 more humorous examples before we're done here.
Yeah, I love it like that. And then who owns the output provided by ChatGPT? Any other AI chatbot or service, or does it differ between AI platforms?
So some of the legalities of this are being decided, right? So, the person that generates the output owns it, I believe. But, if some of the risks, what if you don't attribute that and you pretend it's your own? Now it's basically plagiarism in a sense, right? And that's one of the things that schools are kind of worried about, right? But that's some of the risk that comes with this cool technology, is that you can't tell necessarily that it was written by a computer, and there's both ethical, moral, and possibly legal ramifications of that. So a lot of that's being worked out, and we'll see a lot of litigation around this in the future as we try to sort out how does this all work in society and stuff, right?
Love it. And Doug, I mutified you while he was talking, so we got rid of the feedback a little bit. So if you want to talk again, unmute.
Okay, are you muted?
There you go.
Okay. All right, let me share again here. Let's go over, take a look at this thing.
So what does the acronym GPT stand for? Great question.
Really good question. Jeff, what
Well,
does
we
GPT
asked them.
stand for?
Ask it.
General something translator. You know what? We'll ask AI. We'll ask it in a second, actually.
That's right. Well, Roxanne, we'll ask it for its originator. How about that? And then will you be providing the recording? Yes, Elizabeth, we will provide the recording. You ready for this now?
I'm ready.
Doug.
Yep. So here we have sentiment analysis. And this can be used in all sorts of things. This example, we're going to look at some real tweets that were posted in the Christmas time frame about Southwest Airlines. And we're going to ask the machine to say whether these are positive, neutral, or negative sentiments. But you can use it for all kinds of things. You can use it for the free-form comments in a survey. Would you like to say anything else? You could run that through the sentiment analysis, or surveys, or any kind of feedback forms, or letters to the editor, for that matter. Let's see what happens here.
And Sri, we're going to answer this one too, I think. How does this affect programmers, coders, developers, or software engineers? I think you have an example for that too, right, Doug? Coming up after this one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm hitting submit and nothing's happening.
It's just taking time.
And the answer
Here
is
we go.
generative pre-trained transformer. All right, thank you, Brett. That came from Google. So giving credit to Google and Brett apparently has to be part of the process now, right?
We're short on time, so skip the code thing. Show us a song.
All right, this is taking longer than I would have expected. Usually hit hit the button and it gives me one, negative, 2, positive, 3, negative, so on. So it bang, bang, bang. Usually, I'm not sure what's going on here. But so what we'll do is we'll just, you get the idea. It normally gives you these answers really quick. And so let's just switch gears and go to something else. We'll do something a little fun here. Just a second. Okay. Okay, got a blank chat there?
Yep.
Okay. So just something a little more fun, just to lighten it up a little bit. Let's ask the machine to write a one-verse song about Valentine's Day and candy in the style of Taylor Swift.
Whoa.
And the machine threw in a chorus just for fun. And let's try one other.
That is incredible.
And exactly the same prompt, except in the style of Jay-Z. No chorus on this one.
More rhymes though.
Yeah. All right. So I know this is very quick demos, and apologize for all the screen switching. I didn't have just a PowerPoint that I could run through. But
Right.
I'm going to stop share, turn it back over to Jeff. Hopefully those were interesting for you.
Awesome. And David said one of the emerging opportunities will be AI training and learning how to develop new cognitive skills so you're more effective using AI. That would be true.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, somebody asked or was interested in learning about job security in general, right? And so is this kind of technology going to take away some jobs for some stuff? Probably, right? Maybe. But there is also going to be new jobs for how do you use this technology, right? And how do you program these engines and what, so
I'd like to see it.
go right ahead.
I'm going to unmute. I'd like to say something about that. This is not necessarily AI, but it is the general topic of technology displacing people out of their jobs. Some years ago, we were implementing SAP in an old manufacturing company. One of the inventory analysts said, "So Doug, when we implement SAP, will I still have a job?" I said, "Mike, what's your job?" "I'm an inventory analyst." "Are we still going to have inventory?" "Yes." "Do we still need to analyze it?" "Yes." "You're going to have a new tool." "Oh, okay." So in a lot of cases, the AI will just make us better, faster, smarter at what we're already doing. Some cases there will be some displacement, but that's,
You're going to have
talk to Adam
displacement.
Smith about that.
When there's new technology, there's displacement, right? So that's the way it is. And Christopher's asking, what is Playground in relation to Chat GPT?
Yeah, so we didn't have time to go into the details there, right? But ChatGPT is one of the main products that OpenAI makes available. And GPT-3, which is the second thing we're looking at, is a set of smaller models and less capable engines, but it gives you more tools to tweak some of the parameters, like how random is the results, right? One of the things that somebody asked about in the chat was to give you the same answer every time. And the answer is, well, in ChatGPT, no, it won't. But in GPT-3, the answer is it depends, because there's some settings and controls that says, basically how much randomization of the output should there be. If you set that to 0, it'll give you the same answer every time. If you set that to max, it will choose less probable words for the next word in whatever it's outputting. So you'll get more randomness, more quote creativity, right? And that sort of thing. So definitely depending on which tool or which version of OpenAI capabilities you're using, but there's a lot of power there to kind of do either or and to have some control over that.
Love it.
All right, so I'm going to switch back to my screen here, wrap up with a couple more slides. A little short on time here. We've kind of been doing some questions along the way, so I'm going to try to speed this through and get us to the finish line here.
And Seth is saying, still need some training on scientific source citations. I've seen referenced scientific articles by name with supposed authors, but when I Google the articles, they don't exist. Leads me to believe they made it up. No way. People making stuff up on the internet? No way. Not happening, Seth. Fake news.
Well, and maybe a thing we don't need is more easy ways to create crap, right? Or
Isn't that the
make
truth?
stuff up, right?
Golly, Dave.
But part of this, I mean, and the power here, right? And it kind of, we segue into what did we just see, right? And it's really about, what do you prompt the engine, what are you asking it for and how do you word that? And there's a lot of power in that prompt, right? And that's basically how you program an engine like this, is what question you ask it. And you can even include examples and what you want and don't want and other things like that. So a lot of power, but with all those capabilities, again, there's some risks and some challenges, and it won't always give you what you want. And sometimes it might make stuff up that it sounds really true and it sounds very authoritative about, but isn't, right? So that's one of the things. So let's get into that real quick. So what did we just see, right? And this is, ChatGPT is a language model that can answer questions and provide output based on the prompt that you give it. It's a huge step forward in conversational AI, as we saw comparing ELIZA to ChatGPT. It was pretty ridiculous how far it's come, right? But you can also, you also get wrong stuff from it or incorrect or whatever as well. At the end of the day, all it's doing really is stringing a bunch of words together based on its analysis of what word is most likely to come next, based on its giant database of examples from the internet, right? So one of the things, one of the things on here that I wanted to point out, if you do use this, it may generate incorrect information, and it does not know anything about events after 2021. They've kind of cut off intentionally, so it doesn't know what's going on right now. So you can't ask it about current events because it doesn't know, right?
That was last week, the new version.
Right. And honestly, the other thing I was just reading about in the news yesterday was that you can circumvent some of the safeguards if you know how to put it in the right way. But
I can't imagine hackers hacking this. Cannot imagine that, Jeff.
It's happened. And actually another thing, and that's really what it's about, is hacking the engine to do things it wasn't meant to do. So cybersecurity comes into play here. We'll get into some more of this in a second, right? But, things to be aware of. This, I'm not going to talk about this very long, but this is basically a screenshot of the example from AI, right? So these are many of the things it can do. And if you click on these, it will give you a sample prompt that you can go try and see what it does. And then you can change it and adjust it to prompt it for what you want to know in the style of these kinds of examples. Pretty great stuff, right? It can, one of the things we were going to show you, but we didn't have time, was it can generate code. So you can say, hey, it's cool that it can analyze a bunch of sentiments about, tweets or whatever, but, I'm not a programmer, so I can't automate that, or I can't have it go watch for something. Well, if you tell it to write the code to go do that, even though you're not a programmer, maybe you can, right? That's some of the other cool things that it can do.
That's what Sri was talking about. Sri, that's exactly. I didn't know whether we were going to get to it or not, but if you want, we can you can do a breakout on this, Sri, and then they'll show you exactly how that works. And it's crazy how cool it is.
Yep. I do want to get to some of the security and some of the risk stuff here, so I'm going to fly through this pretty quick. Apologize for talking fast, but again, the materials are available to you. So here's a couple different ways of looking at the considerations related to trust, risk, security, privacy in the world of AI. A list of risks on the left there. We've mentioned a lot of these things, and it's not an exhaustive list, right? There's others, and maybe some we haven't even discovered yet. And since there's a lot of things, the right half of this slide is one way to look at it, or to, categorize those types of risks into different areas, and then, tackle them in different ways, right? So trying to hack the engine or trying to hack into the servers running the engine is different than, is it giving you misinformation to deal with? But, one of the ways that this can be dealt with, and I kind of like this example of the trustworthy AI framework from Deloitte that gives basically 6 different areas of risk and 6 different ways to, areas to make sure you're paying attention to the results and the output and the usage and things like that, right? So it's important to, we're not going to get into how exactly to watch out, but the main thing is, don't pretend the output of the AI is your own unique creative work necessarily without giving it attribution. For example, I used it a little bit in developing this presentation, right? Now, I didn't drag and drop whole slides or whole even paragraphs or maybe even whole sentences, but generating ideas, breaking through writer's block, coming up with new ways to look at things that you might not think of, or all some of the great things that it can do. But be careful, and if you're going to use it, be honest and open and ethical about it, basically, is one of the main things that you can do right away. Here's another way of looking at this. There's a group that in 2017, there was a huge industry conference around AI and the beneficial use of AI. And so out of that came this code of ethics and basically rules of the road that thousands of researchers and implementers and others in the space have all voluntarily agreed to and promised to live by. And that continues to grow. So, at the end of the day, at least we're trying, the industry is trying to, do this right and to take a do no harm approach and strive to do the right thing. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I personally remain optimistic, that we can harness this great new power while avoiding many of these and hopefully all of these potential pitfalls along the way, right? I guess the alternative is a visit from killer robots from the future if we don't. So one more quick thing here. I mean, if for those that have seen Terminator, right, the image on the left of the robot is the endoskeleton of the T-800 from Terminator. And the picture on the right is what OpenAI's image generator that we didn't have to take a look at today. When I said create a futuristic assassin robot in the style of Terminator, and that's the picture that it drew for me or that it generated as a result of that prompt. So don't know about you, but I think that's pretty cool, right?
That's pretty cool.
So wrapping it up, it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride here from the highs and the lows and the light and the dark, right? Hopefully the whiplash hasn't been too bad. But I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here about AI, machine learning, and many of the ways and means that it can be used in everyday work. And of course, with more significant investments, as we mentioned, even more compelling value propositions are available. And we've also taken a quick look at some of the ways that things can go wrong when working with powerful technologies like this. So I would encourage everybody to go out. You can all go to openai.com, sign up for a free account, and try out the tools that we were using today. Sometimes ChatGPT isn't available because it's so busy. It'll say, sorry, I can't help you right now. Come back later. But at least it'll give you some entertainment about itself while it's rejecting your opportunity. So I noticed if you try it in the morning, it's usually a bit more available, or worst case, if you really want it and you want to always have access, then you can pay him $20 a month to get premium access, and it'll be a lot more available and quicker, and some other things as well. So,
Hey, Doug, do me a favor, and whatever you posted, change your settings so that you're sending it to everyone. And I'm going to launch this poll. As we mentioned, there's no obligation to purchase from any vendor. Divine will help you out in continuing the conversation if you would like to. And we want to make sure that you know that you will have a recap by the end of the day. We'll have the briefing presentation, a link to the video, and the ability to schedule a one-on-one meeting, or if you need both these characters here, you can have one-on-two, or bring your whole entire crew, and it can be a many-on-many meeting. So there you go. And you guys can continue the conversation. Here you can reach out to Jeff directly as well as Doug. And you guys just killed this presentation, I got to tell you. And Jamal said so as well. And
Dave, appreciate that. And everybody else, thank you very much for the opportunity.
It is freaking fantastic. I tell you what, you kept it right on point, as well as it's just amazing to watch it happen. And you get a whole bunch of applauses, and I'll do it even live. Those could be AI generated.
We'll never know, right?
But
and
this one's real.
A lot of questions we didn't get to in the chat. So again, we can take that offline or shoot us an email if you really want to know, and we'll do our best to try to follow up and answer.
Yep, there's a couple here that we're going to make sure you get from Miguel and Dizan, and we'll make sure that gets to you guys so that you can answer this for them. And please take advantage of being able to continue the conversation. Is that poll out? Did it work? Is it up? Because there's nobody asking to continue the conversation. I can't imagine that.
It says poll ended.
Let me go back. Let me see. Your results. Oh, there you go. Hold on a second. I'm going to stop sharing. That's what happened. There was a warp in the time-space continuum right there. Hold on a second. I'm going to go back. I'm going to say what is going on with this thing? I have to be able to, there it is. Relaunch the poll. There it is. My apologies, guys. I have no idea what's happening with Zoom. We've been hacked by AI. Blame it
on the machines, right?
Blame it on the machines. For crying out loud, blame it on the machines. But for those of you that missed it earlier, we'll be able to do that. And please take advantage of these guys. Obviously, they know what they're talking about, and they have a lot of capabilities to be able to help you guys in your agencies. And one of those questions is actually from Miguel. If on your federal web pages you have content, do you need to write your content in the way that AI will use your federal content other than your normal SEO writing SOPs? That's a great question, Miguel.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, they just scrape the web basically from, the client side. So now there's a whole different answer. If you're training your own models, which is a possibility and capability, then you've got complete control basically, but in general, no.
So there you go, Miguel. You're
still
here. If not, Miguel, we'll make sure Miguel gets it if Miguel's not here. And Elizabeth, you're awesome. Thank you very much. You're welcome. And I'll make sure that we get the rest of this stuff out to you. You're welcome, everybody that said a poll pot. I appreciate that, Wesley. Thanks for letting me know I screwed it up. And other than that, Jeff, Doug, awesome. And continue the conversation with these characters because they are worth talking to. And we shall see you on the next Gov Brief. We appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll again. In 3, 2, 1, and boom. There we go. And I'll get that to everybody. Appreciate you guys. Excellent job. And we will see you all in the next one. Appreciate you.